when I was much younger, I was privy to a lot of these unsettling, meaningless sort of activities that were going on, being kind of acted in these overloaded crevices of southeast London where I lived back then. Now when I look back at it rationally, it basically feels like maybe it was an amateur thing, but the impression it left at the time was of something that had, or at least was reaching towards some kind of obscure efficacy, right? Like a tangible effect, like a spell. The whole thing was like a spell, like a grimoire, a grand grimoire of weird actions. And these people that I'm talking about, they weren't magicians. No, it wasn't occult specifically. Maybe folk musicians, maybe folk magicians, I don't know. I don't know if it's English though, for sure. Don't know whether that's good or bad, or might be something that accounts for where we find ourselves today, a sort of collective, national subconscious that might have manifested something. It's largely improvised, as it should be, and then she was entered in, this first degree.
The Midsummer Novice, North London. This is
In private, this was horrible.
This is an initiation rite, marking a passage into adulthood.
Yeah.
A young woman, carrying an abundance of wooden offerings and wearing thimbles on her fingers, is blindfolded and released into an empty room. Using whistles and the sound of her fingers on wood, floor, whatever else she must employ, a kind of telepathic echolocation to find her way to a table at the center of the room.
So in private.
Throughout this journey, local tricksters,
like I say,
sometimes dressed in bedsheets,
this
pretending to be ghosts, will make clatters, bangs, and ghostly wails around the room.
Right. Not the most
When
horrible.
she hears these, the novice reacts and replies.
Yeah, so not the most horrible ever. But later there were others who kind of saw this, a quasi kind of initiated audience, which really changes the energy dramatically. Possibly in a bad way or diluting way. Like the last... yeah, like I said, the vibe was different.
When she reaches the table at the center of the room, she mustn't remove her blindfold until the game is declared over.
When I was a kid, I always felt sort of preciousness. Enter. Initiation rite from boyhood to manhood. So a kid called the Kipper, who was 14 at the time,
Beating the bounds.
I recall...
Oxford, Barking, and other parishes.
I recall seeing this.
This is also an initiation rite for boys just hitting puberty.
In a lot of ways, that was...
A local boy, the Kipper, is dressed in metal kitchen appliances and safety gear.
That was the most awkward thing I remember.
Older men in their 20s, the bashers, wearing boxing gear, chase the Kipper around the pub/living room, wherever, attempting to pummel, wrestle, or shame them into a state of maturity.
Yeah, it was play acting, though.
This game of cat and mouse, of engagement and disengagement, only ends when the Kipper is exhausted and sat upon.
Yeah, I don't recall people, like, struggling for real so much. Like, it's kind of fake, but this is where a different energy occurs. With, like,
In the Yorkshire variant, the bashers will at this point ask the Kipper repeatedly if he is okay, to the point of mental torture.
Yes, where there's different energy occurring with like innocent bystanders. There was something. Something has the potential to sort of hover above, or just a performance or a presentation. And I do think it was kind of interesting.
Prestbury Easter Wailing. Cotswolds. The Prestbury Parish Choir have since, around 1941, indulged in a practice of wailing after the readings of the Passion. Supposedly this was originally some kind of amateurish votive offering for Christ, but nowadays has taken on more of a celebratory function. Or just an opportunity for local children to scream their heads off. Either way, it's a massed expression of deep pain and a desperate plea for a fruitful spring to come.
Yeah, I do think it was interesting. Like, this annoyance, right? This line, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay?" It's both like, it's obviously both like annoying and caring. Like sort of when you used to do roughhousing after PE or something in the in the good old days. Yeah, but I want to cut in a. Massive room, like made for encountering it.
Dumb tossers.
Feeling. It seems less real somehow.
Probably originated in Ireland. Usually seen the night before a wedding at family gatherings. Nowadays, this tends to be a game played on stag nights heavily under the influence of alcohol.
Yeah, look at that big group of blokes.
The groom and his best man are tied together at the groin by a long stretch of rope.
Just sat there.
They are both blindfolded, and their ears are plugged, traditionally with wax, but in modern days, any means is used.
For me, it feels genuinely off. I mean,
the two of them gradually reel themselves together, but in a rough and tumble way, teasing, tugging, moving around.
Just you have to look at it.
Other members of the party may put things in their way, chairs and tables and so forth. The two lads also sing whilst enacting this, attempting to be together as much as possible through sensing the rope, placing their heads on the rope, etc.
Yeah, a lovely image. But it's like a thing in a room. Maybe it was a little sad or lame. Certainly I remember feeling self-conscious watching it all kind of unfold.
Founders finishing.
In that dirtier,
Whitechapel.
more private setting of the church.
A traditional way of finishing the bells produced at Whitechapel Foundry in East London.
Yeah, kind of dangerous.
Once a bell has been cast, founders churned the mouth of the bell on a stone on the floor to even out its tones. The particular acoustics of the foundry meant that when this happened, it produced bell sounds far louder than those when hung in nearby St. Botolph without Aldgate.
Yeah, that dirtier, private setting of the church was for sure more dangerous and like operative, if you know what I mean. Like the sound from that dome though was huge, like feeding back, really like a massive bell tower or something. Massive fucking bell. I don't know, I can't honestly remember what was happening exactly. But that moment was in the way things sort of were focusing in together.
Votive antiphon. Anon. Canterbury Cathedral, 16th century. An unmeasured liturgical melody from Kent, presumably performed across and between the vaulted balconies of the cathedral by voices, sackbuts, fiddles.
So interestingly, those guitars were tuned oddly as well, like bells, really. So, the one was tuned like this. The other one was tuned like this. And so, in combination, they resonate like a bell, like this. were like 3 acts in this thing. Yeah.
Knock, 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 knock.
This is the enter in sort of opened up.
Who's
Yeah,
there?
all of this stuff.
Please. I mean it. I mean it. Who's there? Please. I mean it. Again, we endlessly ask for someone.
One thing that stuck in a lot of people's minds, I think, at the time was this thing of toddler dunking. It's odd practice.
Toddler dunking, Wiltshire until 1886. The pre-Victorian practice of toddler dunking was a Boxing Day ritual for men of pregnant wives. The tradition seems to have developed as a kind of comical prenatal training. The father-to-be would grapple a friend's toddler under his arms and attempt to lull him to sleep by gently dunking his head in water, covering his mouth and eyes, and blowing gently on his face.
Right, but like...
The practice was the subject of a lawsuit in 1886 and soon banned.
Yeah, but specifically what was happening at the time involved like a hose pipe, like, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 meters or something, and a mouthpiece, and you know, this was in the late 1900s now we're talking, so not a real baby, obviously, but something else. And also at that time, yeah, there were... Yeah, the sounds that came out were odd, like... yeah, this gargling sort of thing, I don't know, like... Yeah, like, these kind of sounds. But also I remember being taught in those years this thing of like odd twinning as well, like duetting, odd twinning, another sort of old...
Odd twinning. The oral teaching method laid out by blind Irish harpist Turlough O'Carolan, 17th century. The master would play the tune being taught, and the student, or twin, would attempt to play in exact unison. The result was a strange, aberrant, bastardized antiphony that became a performance practice in and of itself.
Yeah, and this thing was kind of in part held together really by one, I guess, like master or fellow craft. Yeah, this person like dragging everyone through the whole sort of thing. And this, I think at a certain point...
Birthday balloons. Christmas, Scotland and Holland,
I think
16th century onward.
I think the efficacy of it all revolves
In small
around
villages across western Scotland, a variant also exists in Holland.
this sort of bullseye.
At Christmas time, a local dressed as Santa would hoist large balloons or risers, nowadays rubber, but originally... Nowadays rubber, but originally inflated and distended pigs' bladders, up onto tall posts with bells hanging from them. The hoisting of these bladder balloons would be carefully timed with mass renditions of Happy Birthday to You.
Yeah, so yeah, like I say, it's all held together kind of by this one person, and I think that the efficacy of everything revolved around this kind of bullseye of things, which didn't quite happen here. Like it didn't quite hit the bullseye, you know, it's sort of a failure. So not like a machine with like cogs and stuff, but it's more like it's like cooking a Christmas dinner or something, like making multiple processes converge in time and space. You know what I mean? Like it's and there's a sense of things not quite being ready at the same time. But I think that's what the power of maybe the potential of these things is, that it could all be ready at the same time. So you can, I don't know, I can remember it never quite happened, which is maybe why these activities are basically forgotten now. Like nobody remembers them. It was also, of course, a sort of bad inverted maypole in a way, like suspended in the air, the ancient phallic symbol of spring, here was like flipped into a sonic cavity, this true vessel of female birth. I guess it was a grimoire for conjuring. The whole thing felt like a grimoire, a spell for conjuring these lot specifically. It was a public thought, like a true, they were the experts, the real masters, like the real things. Again, looking back, like, wouldn't it be more effervescent just to like overlap this? If all those things were happening at the same time, what if they were all going hell for leather, like amidst all the other detritus and shite? That effect or conjures